Hi everybody, this is Katje. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's Monday evening, and so I thought that I would make another video this evening to share with you. I hope everybody's doing well. Tonight I decided to go really girly and also kind of country. So I'm wearing a kind of country outfit with these short shorts and these riding boots. And I also purchased this top recently at Loft. So I like this ensemble for late summer, early fall. The reason I wanted to dress kind of country tonight is that I've been thinking a little about where I come from. I was born in Tennessee, and I've also been thinking about Halloween this past week. So what I thought I would do this evening is basically tell a story that I came up with, yours truly. This is a story that I devised as kind of a scary story that has a rural setting. So in that way I'd like to do justice both to Halloween and to my roots in East Tennessee. So let me just model this out for you briefly before I tell my story. I hope everybody is getting ready for Halloween because it will be here before you know it. So that's a fun time of year. It's one of my favorite holidays. I know that it is for many of you. So let me tell you my story, and this is a two-part story. So this evening, I'm only going to tell the first part, and then perhaps in my next video I will tell the second. So I'll break it up and we can kind of enjoy it over the course of two videos. So the name of my story is The Corn Witch. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who had a very large corn field, a corn farm. He only grew corn on this farm, and he had many, many successful harvests over the years. This farmer had a wife, and he had 7 sons and 1 infant daughter. So they had been living there for quite some time, he and his wife, as they built a family, and he'd been very successful as a farmer for many, many years. But one summer, there was a terrible, terrible drought in the land, and the farmer's corn sort of shriveled up on the stalks, the ears shriveled up on the stalks, and he didn't really have any decent corn crop that year. He was very concerned about that. So the end of the harvest was approaching. He maybe had 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the harvest, before it would be time to harvest the corn. So he was somewhat concerned about this, in great consternation about it. So one night, after he'd gone to bed, and his wife had gone to sleep beside him, he heard in the woods at the edge of the farm, at the edge of the cornfield, he heard this kind of high, strange cackling. And he didn't know what it was, so he went back to sleep. But the next morning, he went to the place in the woods where he thought he had heard the cackling, and there wasn't anybody there, but there was a fire circle. The night before, somebody had had a campfire, and it looked like there had been some animals or some meat cooked in this fire. And so when he looked closer at it, he could see that they were the remains of rodents and squirrels and rabbits and other very small game that somebody or something had cooked in this fire pit. And so he wondered if that's what the cackling was, but he couldn't find anything else. So he decided to go back to his farm and think some more about what to do about the drought, how he was going to deal with that. And so the next night came, and he went back to bed with his wife, and she fell asleep again. And just as the night before had happened, once again the farmer heard this high, strange, high-pitched cackling somewhere out of the woods, coming from the same place in the woods. So now he was starting to get a little afraid, and he dared not go out in the middle of the night. He thought he would wait, and then, as he had before, go out the next morning and investigate. So that's what he did, and all the while he didn't tell his wife about this. He didn't tell any of his sons about it, because he didn't want them to worry. So the next morning, just as he had done the morning before, he went out to the forest to the same spot, and once again there was this fire pit where some more small animals had been cooked, and nothing but the bones, the blackened bones, were left. And in the fire pit, though, next to the fire pit, under a rock, there was an envelope with a red seal, and it was addressed to him. So he wondered what that meant, he reached down and he picked up the envelope, and when he did, he opened the envelope and he read, and all it said was, "Come to the cave 75 yards west of here tomorrow night, or actually tonight at midnight. I want you to come to the cave 75 yards from here, west of here, midnight tonight. Be there by midnight. And I will help you to overcome the drought. I will help you to get back all of your crops if you will come to this cave tonight, 75 yards west of here. I will help you." So the farmer was frightened by this, but he was also intrigued, and because he was desperate to try to come up with something to do about this drought, he said, "Well, look, I'm going to try this." So that night, after he and his wife had gone to bed, and the wife went to sleep, and all the sons had gone to sleep, and the infant daughter as well, the farmer got up, and he got a lantern, and he got a gun, and he proceeded to walk to the edge of the cornfield, and then into the forest, past the fire pit, 75 yards west of it, and sure enough, there was a cave there that he didn't remember. He knew the land pretty well, but he didn't remember this cave. Nevertheless, there it was. So he went into the cave, and as he neared the cave, he could see that there was another fire burning inside the cave. So he entered this cave, and inside there was this fire, not unlike the fire pit that he had passed on the way there. And there was a very tall man standing next to the fire. So the man said, "Well, look, welcome. I'm the person who sent you the note." And he looked like people normally, except for two things. Well, there were several things about him that weren't. He was extremely, extremely tall. He was a very, very tall person, and his skin was kind of a sallow, unhealthy yellow color. That was a little strange. And he had eyes like normal people, but in each eyeball there were two green irises, so that he had 4 irises, green irises, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. And so the man said, "Well, welcome to the cave, and I'm going to help you with this problem." So the farmer said, "Well, how are you going to do that?" Well, the yellow man with the 4 green eyes said, "Well, what I want you to do is go back, and I am going to give you a harvest. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, your field will have a normal, ripe harvest that has not been affected by the drought, and all you have to do is harvest every ear of corn off of this crop that I'm going to give you that's unaffected by the drought. All you have to do is harvest every ear of corn by the end of the harvest season, let's say 2 weeks from now, and you can have it, but if you don't succeed, if you do not finish harvesting it, then I will take your baby daughter for my own. You will pay that price for not succeeding in completing the harvest of the field." So the farmer thought about this for a moment, and he realized, well, look, I have a fairly large field, but I've been able to harvest the whole thing in less than 2 weeks, so this really shouldn't be a problem. As long as I work and get my sons to work on it, we should be able to do that. That shouldn't be a problem. So he agreed, and he shook hands with the yellow man and decided to do this. So he then proceeded, they parted ways, they said goodbye, and the farmer proceeded to walk back through the forest to the edge of the field, across the field, and into his house, and he went to bed. And the next morning when he got up, sure enough, there was this large, the entire field was filled with green, ripe stalks of corn with the ripe ears on the stalks, beautiful yellow and silver corn all around the acreage. It was just really like the most perfect crop of corn that the farmer could remember in the history of his farm. And so he was very, very excited about this, and he called his 7 sons together, and they began to harvest the ears. And they would pluck the ears and take them into the barn, and then return to get more ears. But they noticed something very quickly as they began to harvest this corn. And that was that every time someone, whether it was the farmer or one of the 7 sons, every time someone would take a basket of ears that had just been plucked off of the stalks into the barn and store them there in the corn crib and then return to the field, the ears that had been plucked had been replaced, so that none of the corn had really been harvested, or some of it had been, but it had been replaced, and so there was no way that the farmer was going to be able to harvest all of the corn. He realized at that point, after an hour or so of trying to pick as many ears as possible, and then returning only to find that new ears had grown in their place, and so he hadn't succeeded in harvesting the crop, he realized that the yellow man was a witch. And in fact, the yellow man was known as the corn witch, even though the farmer didn't know that himself, but he had now found that out. And he realized that there was no way that he was going to succeed in harvesting every ear of corn from this beautiful corn crop within 2 weeks, because, as we've just seen, every time he and the sons would take some ears in, more ears would grow back, and so there was no way. It was almost like an impossible task. It was an impossible task to harvest the entire crop. Might say that it was a technicality, but it was a technicality that worked as a trick, and so the farmer was even more upset and even more concerned because now it looked like he was going to lose his infant daughter to the corn witch. So that's the first part of my story. I hope you liked it. And next time I'm going to tell the next part of my story, which will begin with the farmer telling the 7 sons about the corn witch, telling his wife also, who's very shrewd about the corn witch, and she comes up with a plan about how they might defeat the corn witch and beat her at her own game. But I'm not going to say any more about that this evening. That's all I wanted to say. I hope you like my story, and I hope you're all getting excited about Halloween. So before you know it, as I said, it will be here, and I look forward to seeing and hearing more Halloween stories from some of the rest of you who post videos, and I'd love to see some of your costumes. Those of you who are planning to dress up for Halloween, I certainly would love to see some of your costumes. I love Halloween costumes. I may not do one this year because we don't get that many trick-or-treaters, but I may reconsider that. I don't know. We'll see. I'd love to go as a cross-dresser, but I'm not sure that would go over too well in the neighborhood. But let me think about it. I'll get back to you on that. And so until next time, this is Katje. I wish everybody a restful and a peaceful and an enjoyable good evening. Take care of each other. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for spending a little time with me this evening. Bye-bye.